What if the smallest voice in the room carried the heaviest story? What if a 10-year-old child walked onto the biggest stage in the world, not to win applause, but to carry a legacy? The lights inside America's Got Talent felt brighter than usual that evening. The stage shimmered. The audience buzzed with excitement. Judges flipped through their notes, expecting another ordinary audition. Then she walked out. A tiny girl with long, carefully tied dreadlocks. Barefoot. Calm. Unshaken. She did not look nervous. She did not look overwhelmed. She looked certain. Many in the audience exchanged confused glances. A child. Dreadlocks. From India. On a stage known for grand spectacles. What could she possibly do that hadn't already been done? Her name was Anaya Sharma. Only 10 years old. But her eyes carried something far older. Something deeper. Backstage, her parents watched silently. Her father pressed his hands together, whispering a quiet prayer. Her mother held her scarf tightly, her heart racing faster than the ticking clock above the stage. This wasn't just a performance for them. It was memory. It was pain. It was tribute. For years, Anaya had grown up listening to reggae music in a small apartment far from America. Music that spoke of struggle. Of hope. Of standing tall despite injustice. Music that connected continents and cultures. Tonight, she wasn't just singing. She was carrying a story across oceans. The crowd still didn't know. The judges still didn't know. They saw a little girl. They did not yet see the storm in her voice. And as the music track began to play softly in the background, the entire theater slowly fell into silence. Because sometimes, the most powerful voices come from the smallest hearts. And sometimes, a child doesn't just perform. She reminds the world what it feels like to believe. Anaya Sharma was not like most children her age. While other girls spent their afternoons watching cartoons or playing noisy games in the streets, Anaya preferred sitting near the small window of her home, headphones resting gently over her ears. She would close her eyes and let the rhythm of reggae music move through her quietly. She lived in a modest apartment in Pune, India. The paint on the walls had faded over the years. The balcony plants were her mother's small attempt to bring color into their simple life. Anaya's world was not filled with luxury. It was filled with music. Her father, Raghav, worked long hours as a school music teacher. His salary was small, but his belief in music was enormous. Every evening, he would return home tired, yet still find energy to tune his old guitar. Anaya would sit beside him, watching carefully. Learning without being taught. She was quiet in school. Teachers described her as respectful and thoughtful. Some classmates found her different. Her dreadlocks often drew stares. Whispers followed her in corridors. A few children laughed at her hairstyle. But Anaya never reacted. She had learned early that being different was not something to hide. It was something to protect. At night, when the house grew silent, she would softly hum songs to herself. Songs about freedom. Songs about pain. Songs that sounded much older than her 10 years. Yet behind her calm face, there were fears. She worried about disappointing her parents. She worried that people would never understand why she loved music from a land far away from her own. She practiced every day, even when her throat felt tired. Even when doubt crept into her small heart. Because for Anaya, singing was not about fame. It was about feeling seen. And as she stood backstage on the grand stage of America's Got Talent, her hands were steady. But inside her chest, her heart carried years of silent hope. Tonight was not just another song. Yet the deepest struggle was invisible. Anaya feared that no matter how much she sang, she might never be able to repay the music that saved her father from sinking into despair. And that fear quietly followed her, all the way to the grand stage in America. Anaya's love for reggae did not begin as a hobby. It began as healing. 3 years earlier, her family had faced a silence that felt heavier than any storm. Raghav had lost his teaching position when the small private school where he worked shut down without warning. Overnight, stability disappeared. The guitar in the corner gathered dust. Bills stacked quietly on the dining table. Conversations at home grew softer, shorter. Anaya had never seen her father sit so still. For weeks, he stopped playing music. The man who once filled their evenings with melody now stared at the floor as if searching for answers between the tiles. Mira tried to remain strong. She sold a few of her gold bangles, small pieces of her wedding memories, just to keep the household running. But Anaya noticed everything. Children notice more than adults think. The house that once echoed with rhythm became painfully quiet. One evening, while cleaning an old shelf, Anaya found a CD her father used to play often. Reggae music filled the room when she pressed play. The sound was warm. Honest. Full of struggle, yet full of hope. Something shifted that night. Her father slowly lifted his head. For the first time in weeks, he listened. The lyrics spoke of resilience. Of standing tall when the world turns away. Of believing in tomorrow even when today feels heavy. Anaya watched her father's eyes soften. From that day forward, reggae became more than music in their home. It became strength. It became courage. But outside their apartment walls, life remained difficult. Money was still tight. Relatives questioned their choices. Some neighbors whispered that listening to foreign music would not solve Indian problems. At school, the teasing grew louder when Anaya decided to style her hair into dreadlocks. She wanted to honor the culture of the music that had healed her family. Many did not understand. Some called her strange. Some laughed. Each comment felt like a small cut. The music began softly. A slow reggae rhythm flowed through the massive theater. The kind of rhythm that does not rush. The kind that breathes. Anaya closed her eyes. For a brief second, the bright lights disappeared. The thousands of faces vanished. The judge's table faded into darkness. She was back in her small apartment. Back to the evening when her father first smiled again. Her voice entered gently. Not loud. Not forced. But steady. The first few lines floated across the silent room. The audience leaned forward. Some had expected a cute performance from a child. Instead, they heard depth. Each word carried weight. Each note trembled with lived emotion. Halfway through the song, something unexpected happened. The giant screen behind her, which usually displayed simple stage visuals, began showing old photographs her father had submitted without her knowing. Images of their modest home. Of Raghav teaching music to children in worn-out classrooms. Of Anaya sitting beside him, listening. The judges watched closely. The audience began to understand. This was not imitation. This was gratitude. Anaya did not open her eyes when the images appeared. She kept singing, unaware that her private story was unfolding before thousands. Her father, standing backstage, froze. Tears filled his eyes as he realized what the producers had done. They had turned her audition into a tribute not just to reggae, but to him. The final chorus rose stronger than before. Her small body stood firm in the center of the massive stage. The dreadlocks that once brought teasing now framed a face glowing with purpose. And then, as the last note stretched into silence, something shifted in the theater. There was no immediate applause. Only stillness. A heavy, emotional stillness. For the first time that night, no one saw a 10-year-old girl trying to impress judges. They saw a daughter honoring her father. They saw a child carrying resilience in her voice. When the applause finally rose, it did not feel loud. It felt warm. It wrapped around Anaya like an embrace she had carried inside her heart for years. She opened her eyes slowly. The massive theater stood on its feet. The judges were no longer expressionless. Their faces had softened. Some wiped quiet tears. Others simply watched her with a kind of respect that cannot be taught. But the most important reaction was not in the crowd. It was backstage. Raghav stood still, his hands trembling. The same man who once sat in silence, lost in doubt, was now watching his daughter shine under the brightest lights in the world. And in that moment, something healed completely. Anaya had believed she needed to prove something. She had believed she needed to carry the weight of gratitude like a responsibility too heavy for a child. She thought her voice had to fix everything that once broke inside their home. But standing there, with applause echoing around her, she realized a simple truth. Love does not need repayment. Music does not ask for debt. And children are not meant to carry their parents' struggles on their small shoulders. They are meant to transform them. Anaya's performance was not powerful because she was young. It was powerful because she was honest. She did not sing to impress. She sang to remember. And sometimes, when we choose to honor the pain that shaped us instead of hiding it, we become stronger than we ever imagined. Her dreadlocks were no longer something people questioned. They became a symbol. A symbol that culture can travel across oceans. That healing can come from unexpected places. And that even the smallest voice can remind the world of something simple. Hope is louder than fear. And when a child dares to sing from the heart, even the biggest stage must listen.